What's up, guys? We have got to talk about Zootopia 2. Now, to be honest, cards on the table, I did not have much personally invested in this film. I saw the first one when it came out, however many years ago. Feels like forever ago. I know because my brother just turned 21 and I took him to go see this when he was probably 9 years old, maybe not that young, like 11 or 12. Anyway, it had been a while since this franchise had put anything out, since the original had come out, and I'd all but forgotten it. Turns out the rest of the world did not feel that way. This movie had to have been massively anticipated, not just domestically, but abroad as well, with the numbers coming out of China being absolutely insane. So let's take a look at this first right here from IMDb. This article, it says Zootopia 2 scores fourth biggest global debut in box office history with $556 million, including $272 million in China, which is far more than it's made domestically here in America, which isn't a bad thing at all. It's just a very interesting thing, right? That this film has been so much more successful in China, right? A movie that was made in English for American audiences than it has been in America for those American audiences. But we can read a little bit more. Zootopia 2 unleashed a box office stampede as Disney's animated sequel raced to the 559.5 million in its global debut. Those ticket sales rank as the fourth highest global debut of all time after Avengers Endgame, Avengers Infinity War, and Spider-Man No Way Home, putting the family-friendly adventure in elite company at the box office. After all, Endgame and Infinity War eventually surpassed 2 billion globally, while No Way Home got incredibly close with 1.9 billion. Zootopia, which earned a staggering 409 million internationally and 158 million domestically, set several other opening weekend records. And we have to take into context a couple of things, right? One, Wicked Part 2 had just come out at the box office, right? The week prior. They kind of took the early jump on the Thanksgiving release, or potentially, did they come out on the same day? Let me double check that. Yeah, okay. So they technically released 5 days apart, just about a week apart. Yeah, so they technically released about a week apart. Either way, 5 days apart. They got a small head start with Wicked, but that was a huge piece of competition, right? Over the Thanksgiving holiday weekend, you have a lot of family friendly competition at the box office. And we're coming off of October, which was one of the worst Octobers in cinema history, guys, when you go to the box office, right? I saw a bunch of movies at the box office in October. I saw a bunch of movies at the movie theater in October, right? I participated in helping out the box office numbers, but not a lot of people did, right? And we can take a look here at an interesting article from Screen Rant by this gentleman named Alex Harris. This great Thanksgiving box office is because Hollywood delivered. And I think he makes some great points. So let's go ahead and read into this. He says the fall box office has been rough this year, and it inspired a decent level of panic. In the absence of flashy tentpoles, October yielded the worst domestic theatrical return since 1997, excluding 2020 because of the pandemic. And adult targeted Oscar hopefuls were failing to connect left and right. Several factors contributed, including movies like Mortal Kombat 2 and Michael having been moved away from their original slots there, but at a time when the industry was hoping to see box office bounce back from the 1-2 punch of the pandemic and Hollywood strikes, it understandably inspired fears of that month becoming a new dead zone. While it'll take until next October to assuage those concerns and prove them right, excuse me, Thanksgiving has changed the tone. According to Deadline, this past long weekend saw films gross a collective $299 million domestically, the holiday's third highest total ever. And Zootopia 2 obviously led the way with $158 million domestically, second highest ever behind last year's Moana 2, but it was hardly the only one to do so well. And that's really interesting, right? Because as you guys remember, I just read that Zootopia 2 did the fourth highest of all time globally, but it still fell behind Moana 2 over this holiday run last year, which is really interesting, and I think just underscores how much of a lift this film got from the $250 million plus from the Chinese market just over the opening weekend. I mean, absolutely astronomical numbers. Wicked for Good performed well enough to stay in line with Wicked's gross over this time frame last year. Now You See Me, Now You Don't, Predator, Badlands, and The Running Man all enjoyed strong holds on their 3-day totals compared to the week before. A24's Eternity, yada, yada, yada. Why the box office revival? The holiday is undeniably important. People clearly still go to the movies this time of year, but it's also important to note that Hollywood did something it arguably didn't for much of October: deliver great movies. And I completely agree, right? When you look at the movies that people were fussing about not having a great return on their investment, not getting a ton of people's engagement, we're talking about films like To Die For. I'm talking about films like After the Hunt, films that, were made by prestige filmmakers, but maybe not their most successful effort, despite whatever, things there might have been to enjoy or appreciate about them. These were not the strongest contributions from those filmmakers. And I think word got out about that. It was like, hey, a couple of these films, they're pretty long and they're not for everybody. And if you're not really interested in it, you might have better luck when you can just watch it at home. And if you're going to take you and your girlfriend or your husband or whomever with you, you're going to spend $50. It's like, maybe wait until over the holidays you watch it for $9.99, because they weren't what I would call like prestige films, right? A lot of prestige filmmakers, but not quite so many like truly elite, gotta go see it at the movies, right? Another example of just a dog shit flop that came out was The Running Man. A Running Man was made by Edgar Wright, who I would consider to be a prestige filmmaker. I know it's been a while since he's made a film that really captured the public interest. But if you guys go back to Baby Driver, you'll remember that was an absolutely phenomenal movie and a phenom, right? It was a summer blockbuster hit. Everybody was talking about it. I went and saw it multiple times that summer with multiple different friend groups, which is how I, as a film fan, can always tell if a movie is really breaking through. If I get hit up by multiple different social circles and they're like, I want to go see this movie, because they know I'm a film guy and I'll definitely go see it with them. Edgar Wright delivered a total stinker, an absolute dud, a completely forgettable film. So that kind of adds to the list of things that were, kind of ho-hum about the month of October. And I think a lot of people were scared. A lot of people were rightfully scared. Like, are people losing interest in going to the movies? And I think what Zootopia 2 affirms is that something that Gavin and I have talked about on Palm d'Or, because this is just me this time, sorry for the lesser commentary, but one thing we've talked about in the past is that if you are going to get people to come out to the cinema, you have to make it an event. And I think that's why IPs like Wicked do so well, because it does feel like an event to go out with your family and see Wicked. Taking your kids to go see Zootopia 2, it'll engage them. It'll get them off the iPad. It'll give them a unique kind of experience. And even a movie like Predator Badlands, which I don't think a lot of people expected to have the legs or the box office number at all that it came out and delivered this year. And it was because it felt like an event to go see that movie, and it was actually good. So I think a lot of the criticisms and a lot of the fear mongering about like, is the movie business completely kaput, is overblown. But I think we're entering a new era where the demands of the people who are going to spend their dollars, the demands of the audiences, the moviegoers, are changing. And we're going to see Hollywood cater much more to Chinese interests, right? Because those are people who are going to the movies. If you spend $250 million on the opening weekend collectively as a country, China just did, right? Hollywood's going to take that into consideration, and they're going to be much more likely to cater to the interests of those audiences, just like they were most likely to cater to the interests of American audiences for so long, right? If I was a French guy or a German guy and I was a film fan, most of the international filmmaking was dominated by Hollywood. I had to live with that, right? This is something that we might come to see start change. I'm not saying that Hollywood will be supplanted by Chinese filmmaking or that they'll start making movies that come out in Mandarin or something like that. But I do think we'll see more and more of a Chinese influence when it comes to Hollywood filmmaking. Surely when it comes to these children animated films like Zootopia, because if Disney can print, $1 billion with this movie, which I think they can. They're definitely on track to make $1 billion with this film. They're going to try and do it again and again. And not just Disney, but Netflix is going to try and do it. DreamWorks is going to try and do it. All these other companies are going to try and do it as well. And they're going to try and tap into that Chinese market. So I think that's all very interesting stuff to consider. This was just a quick box office update for everyone, because it was a snow day over here at the Casa del Vanguard, and I wanted to record a little something for you. But peace out. Really appreciate anybody that tuned in for this, and we'll see you next time. And there will definitely be two of us, not one of us.